another.
And that was from July at the White House's Social Media Summit. And that is our topic this week on The Communicators: conservatives in social media and whether they are censored. Joining us to discuss this issue are two conservatives. Patrick Hedger is with the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and Robert Bluey is with the Heritage Foundation. Mr. Bluey, you were at that social media summit. What are your impressions?
Yeah, it was quite an event. I probably will never attend anything quite like it, as this president is known to put on events like this. It was really a combination of both a celebration of social media and the success that he and other conservatives have had taking their message directly to the American people, but it also was an opportunity for him to highlight some of the areas where he feels he's being suppressed in his reach. Other conservatives stood up and spoke about their own examples of bias or what they perceive as bias from the social media companies. So it was a combination of those two types of things. And of course, as the president's known to do, it went on for quite a long time. And there was, some entertainment mixed in with substantive policy discussion.
Are conservatives, and this is a question for both of you, but are conservatives censored on social media?
The social media companies say no. So they are on that one side of it. Now, we have personally experienced examples where content has been removed, and when you go to a Google or a Facebook or a Twitter and you ask them why, it seems that it's because of their hate speech policy or community standards or other things that we see as just speech or a policy issue where they may tend to agree with us on. So in some cases, yes, I do think that conservatives have experienced a bias or a suppression because of the liberal values that come out of Silicon Valley. Now, I don't have a definitive study that goes to show, because there have been other cases where liberals have complained about bias. I think that ultimately what it comes down to is these social media companies sometimes overexerting, and if they would just let free speech take priority, we might be better off.
Mr. Hedger, same question.
Well, I'll just say that I think it's impossible for any private entity to censor another private entity. Censorship specifically applies to action by government. And we have to remember that the First Amendment is a restriction on government. It is not an entitlement upon other private actors. We're talking about private platforms and systems that are created by Americans that themselves have First Amendment protections, and that includes freedom of association and their own freedom of speech. So to the extent that they are limiting, and there again, I would agree with my counterpart here that there is no general study that's looked at this and found any systemic examples of they're referring to as censorship or suppression. To the extent that that is occurring, again, that is not a First Amendment violation, because if there is some sort of removal going on, this is private companies exerting their own First Amendment rights, saying that we don't want to be affiliated with some of the messaging that's being posted on our site.
But don't those social media companies have an outsized influence and have more of a responsibility to allow free speech?
There's no size clause in the First Amendment. We have a responsibility to respect the speech rights and the association rights of all Americans, no matter how big or small their platform or their influence may be.
And Patrick, what I'd say is, as a value, I think we as Americans should aspire to respect the free speech rights of others. I agree with you completely in terms of the government's role and regulating companies. I do not want to see the government step in. I don't think that the consequences, I think you'd have some unintended consequences, frankly, if that were to happen. But I think as consumers, we can certainly demand that as users of Facebook and Twitter and Google, that if we're going to be on that platform, we expect that, they will respect our ability to communicate. If we don't like it, we can quit. We can go found our own company. We can take our message to a different platform, but ultimately they are private companies and they get to set the rules.
And I think